But it's, once I learned to just let the garden run its course to an extent and back off, and then know that there's a whole nother season coming up, that I don't care where you live, you can absolutely have a fall garden. And that was when the breath of air came in, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, we're going to let our tomatoes die out. If the pepper plants aren't producing, which they will kind of go a little bit stagnant at one point, but if they're looking kind of rough and weak, go ahead and get them out and get that bed ready. And that's kind of left me in, because it's tough, because you want your garden to look like it's completely clear, and or not clear, but it's like doing very well and lush and vibrant in the summer. But then you look back at it and you're like, once you get it replanted and you've got a whole nother crop in there, you're like, it's just a memory. You know what I mean? It's just, it's in the past.
Definitely in the past. Yeah. It's, I was going to pull up the planter app to see, as I'm heading into this period, and I'm looking at the time it's taking for some things to produce that were planted in the summer, or, maybe late spring going into the summer. And I'm kind of redefining my fall spaces in my head. And I'm curious to know if I was close to getting it right, kind of according to my garden plan. This is, if I've learned anything about my garden, I've learned that I need like runway for a fall garden. Now, planting fall in containers, that's kind of one of the beauties of containers. Like, I can position them however I think appropriate, to get optimal sun, to make sure that I'm watering them accordingly. But when it comes to the raised beds, I have tried to squeeze things in over and over and over again, and it just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
Right. I need a clear space. I need a full garden bed to focus on. So that's what I was going to check, to see if I really had planned to have a corner of a bed for fall, or if I really planned to say, all right, this 7 foot space is going to be for fall. And the itch that I have now is everything for my garden and the fall plantings I'm thinking about, is it clear at the same time and then ready to plant for fall at the same time. So I do this dance of, I have a 4 by 4 foot bed, and I'm just like, all right, what do I plant until I'm ready to plant fall things? By the time you hear this, I will be planting fall things. But in this exact moment, I'm like, well, how many weeks do I have in between? And if I leave it blank, am I going to forget about planting it, right? And that's the part that I have to kind of trust my process, right? I
Yeah.
spent months thinking about this.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. These are the times when your plans all come together.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
so we need to remember that, and just think like, this is, you've spent this time. Hopefully you've been using the Planter app, which is a sponsor of the show. Amazing. Definitely want to use it. And it's because it's so visual
Yeah.
that you can easily lay it out. But it's like you said, I can go back and compare to what my plan was on the app. And I need to actually make my fall garden plan. It won't take me long. But now that I'm starting to see things happen, I can make a more accurate plan. And I kind of held off this year for that purpose. I went ahead and I started seeds and stuff like that. But when I noticed certain trends in the garden, certain beds
Mm-hmm.
producing a certain way, that's when I started thinking like, okay, if I'm going to make a change, when am I going to do that? And at this time of year, it's into the next season. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the Planner app comes in really useful for me. It's a sponsor of the show. Check it out. It's on the Google and Apple Play Store. Use the link to get yourself a discount on the Planter app. But so I need to do that within the next week or two. But I went out there and I did the same thing you did. Like, what else can I put in there? What else can I do?
Yeah.
So I did some cover crops. I just filled the gaps with cover crops. May be there for a month, may be there for 2 months, may not be. I don't know, but I can terminate it whenever I want to.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's better than letting the weeds take over, because I've got one bed that didn't do so hot with the cover crop. I went through and I laid it out, and I was like, oh, I don't have any mulch to put on top, so let me go ahead and just run my rake over it. I buried the seeds too deep. I did get germination, but not as much. So it's like I got some bad weeds in there. my son, he doesn't know it, but he's signed up to help me get him out, and he's not going to be happy. But we'll get through it, and it's just one of those things. But at what point do you change your plans?
Yeah, I'm looking, and I think let's call it 6 spaces that I had focused on for fall.
6 square feet?
And no, 6 spaces, like 6 garden spaces, six
Okay.
garden beds, if you will. And one of them I've already decided to toss and let whatever's growing in the garden grow. So that's now I'm down to 5. And I got 4 of the 5 or 4 of the 6 right. Like my plan, what I came into the season with will remain my plan. There's one other space where I was a bit ambitious, and I'm not going to be able to plant in that either. So I guess you could look at it and say 4 out of 6 beds will be fall as I plan. 2 of them I've made an adjustment, and just basically I'm forfeiting that space for fall based on what's growing now and how I anticipate it's going to continue to grow. And that's okay. Like 4 spaces for fall is it's pretty boss.
Yeah, I'm. I don't
It's
know
good
how.
real estate too. That's the key.
Yeah, I don't know how many spaces I'm gonna have yet. I'm literally before we did this, I was in the process. I was out there doing some work, and I
Mhm.
was in the process of looking at it and being like, okay, what's going next? You know, because we're about up to the phase where we're gonna start pulling stuff out. But I wanted to say, as we get into this time of year and you start looking at your garden and things are hurting, and just like you said, you may try to start cramming plants in, but is that
Mhm.
necessarily the best course of action? You know, changing your plan quite like that?
I think it when we would have done this episode 2 months ago for summer, yeah. Right
Absolutely.
now, for me, and my recommendation would be no. So the key is, and it's funny because you said it. Sometimes I'm just so linear in my thinking. I always have my garden plan in the planter app with all seasons across the full garden.